Hi friends, welcome to English Study Point. Today in this video lecture, I am going to discuss Edmund Spenser's The Epithalamion, and this video is part number 2. My love is now awake out of her dreams. This line suggests that the speaker's beloved has transitioned from a state of dreaming, possibly symbolic of innocence or detachment, to consciousness. It sets an intimate and personal tone, indicating a moment of awakening, and her fair eyes like stars that dimmed were. So the speaker compares his beloved's eyes to stars that have been obscured. This comparison implies that her beauty has been hidden or muted, enhancing the theme of revelation. With darksome clouds now shew their goodly beams. So the metaphor of dark clouds revealing bright beams emphasizes the transformative movement of awakening. The imagery conveys the notion that love brings beauty and light to the fore. Now here, more bright than Hesperus his head doth rear. Hesperus is a kind of evening star, is a symbol of beauty. The speaker claims that his beloved's eyes shine even brighter, elevating her above this celestial body, emphasizing her extraordinary beauty. Come now, ye damsels, daughters of delight. So the speaker invokes mythical figures, inviting the daughters of delight. This creates a festive atmosphere and suggests that joy and celebration are integral to the poem's theme. Help quickly her to diet. So the speaker requests the help of these figures to assist in dressing or adorning his beloved, indicating that her beauty requires the finest care and treatment, almost as if she is a goddess. Now here we see, but first come ye fair hours which were begot. So this invocation introduces the fair hours, representing time personified. It adds a celestial element to the proceedings, suggesting time plays a vital role in the unfolding of events in Jove's sweet paradise of day and night. So the poem references the divine aspect of the occasion, linking it to Jupiter's paradise, the home of the gods. This connection elevates the wedding to a cosmic event, linking it to a divine order, which know the seasons of the year allot. So the fair hours are also responsible for organizing the seasons, emphasizing the harmony of nature and love, suggesting that marriage is in alignment with the natural order, and all that ever in this world is fair. So this assertion ties beauty with the cyclical nature of life, reinforcing the idea that love and the beauty it brings are a universal truth, though make and still repair. So this suggests that all beautiful things are continually made and remade, reinforcing theme of renewal inherent in love and marriage. And ye three handmaids of the Cyprian queen. So the speaker invokes the three graces associated with Venus, the goddess of love, representing beauty, charm, and joy. This highlights the sacred and elegant nature of the wedding celebration. The which do still adorn her beauty's pride. So these handmaids are tasked with enhancing the beauty of the beloved. This underscores the notion of adornment not merely as decoration but as a celebration of intrinsic beauty. Help to adorn my beautifulest bride. So the plea to help adorn his bride reaffirms her elevated status as the most beautiful, elevating her not only in physical appearance but also spiritually and emotionally. And as ye her array still throw between. Here, the speaker requests that as they dress her, they intersperse various graces and blessings. This reflects the desire for the wedding to be intertwined with goddess and beauty, some graces to be seen. So this line emphasizes the need for visible manifestations of grace, alluding to the spiritual and physical beauty that the wedding represents. And as ye used to Venus to her sing. So invoking the tradition of singing to Venus during marriage ceremonies, this line connects the celebration of love with ancient rituals, enriching the communal and sacred aspects of the movement. The wilds, the woods shall answer and your echo ring. So the final line ties the natural world to the wedding celebration. The woods echoing signifies the harmony between love and nature, indicating that the entire universe celebrates this union. Now is my love already forth to come. So the speaker announces that his beloved is prepared to arrive, suggesting anticipation and excitement, setting a joyful tone for the poem. Let all the virgins therefore well await. So the speaker calls upon virgins attending the wedding to prepare themselves, implying that this event is pure and sacred, and gave fresh boys that tend upon her groom. So the speaker addresses the youthful attendants of the bridegroom, signaling that the wedding involves both sides, the groom's party and the virgins. Prepare yourselves, for he is coming straight. So there's an urgent call for everyone to be ready for the groom's arrival, hinting at the theme of celebration and the importance of this day. Set all your things in seemly good array. So the speaker emphasizes the need for everyone to prepare themselves neatly, reinforcing the significance of the day. Fit for so joyful day. The adjective joyful underscores the celebratory mood of the wedding, marking it as a significant occasion, the joyfulest day that ever sun did see. So the speaker claims this day to be the brightest and happiest, elevating its importance in comparison to all previous days. Fair sun, shew forth thy favorable ray. So the speaker addresses the sun, asking it to shine brightly and kindly on the wedding day, symbolizing light and positivity. And let thy leaful heat not for wind be. So he asks the sun to temper its heat, which suggests concern for comfort, indicating a desire for the day to be perfect, for fear of burning her sunshiny face. So there is a desire to protect the bride's beauty. He fears the effects of the sun on her radiant complexion, her beauty to disgrace. So the desire to maintain and honor the bride's appearance showcases the speaker's admiration and reverence for her. O fairest Phoebus, father of the muse! The speaker invokes Phoebus, Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and the arts, associating creativity with the joy of the wedding. If ever I did honor thee, or right. So he mentions his past tribute to Apollo, suggesting a longing for divine favor for this occasion, or sing the thing that mote thy mind delight. The speaker refers to his poetry and past achievements, hoping that this day brings joy to Apollo, thus invoking a blessing. Do not thy servant simple bone refuse. So he entreats Apollo not to deny his humble request for a beautiful wedding day, but let this one day be mine. So the speaker specially asks that this day be his own, indicating its deep personal significance. Let all the rest be thine. So he offers all other days to Apollo, demonstrating a selfless devotion and elevating the wedding above all else. Then I, thy sovereign praises loud will sing. So he promises to sing praises to Apollo, indicating that he will celebrate the divine presence in his life. That all the woods shall answer and their echo ring. This line suggests that the praises will be so powerful that nature itself will respond, emphasizing the joyous atmosphere. Hark, how the minstrels begin to shrill aloud their merry music that resounds from far. The poet begins by drawing the reader's attention to the joyful music played by the minstrels, suggesting a sense of celebration and anticipation. The term hark indicates a call to listen, emphasizing the importance of music in setting the festive atmosphere. The pipe, the tabor, and the trembling crowd that well agree without then breach or jar. So the poet lists instruments, pipe or tabor, and describes the harmonious gathering that reflects unity and joy. The use of bridge or jar underscores the seamlessness of the celebration, where all elements come together beautifully. But most of all the damsels do delight when they their tremble smite. So the focus shifts to the women who take particular pleasure in playing their instruments. Trembles, the word delight suggests that the music brings them joy, reinforcing theme of celebration. And thereunto do dawns and carol sweet, that all the senses they do ravish quite. So the imagery of dancing and singing, dawns and carol sweet, adds to the festive atmosphere. The phrase ravish quite suggests an overwhelming delight, implicating that the celebration engages all sensory experiences, emphasizing the joyfulness of the occasion. The whiles the bones ran up and down the street, crying aloud with strong, confused noise. So the boys running and shouting contributes to the chaos and excitement of the wedding celebration. The confused noise captures the innocence and exuberance of youth, which wildly complements the structured music as if it were one voice. So this line shows collective spirit of the celebration, implying harmony even amidst the chaos. The poised sound blend together, symbolizing unity in the festive uproar. Hymen, 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 they do shout. So the shout of Hymen refers to the Greek god of marriage, symbolizing theme of love and union. The repetition, Hymen, Hymen, conveys enthusiasm and joy, serving as a communal celebration of marriage. That even to the heavens, they are shouting shrill, doth rich and all the firmament doth fill. So the intensity of their shouts elevates the jubilance to heavenly proportions. The phrase suggests that the joy of the wedding is so profound that it resonates with the heavens, highlighting the significance of love, to which the people standing all about as in approvance do there to applaud. So the crowd's applause indicates acceptance and joy for the union being celebrated. The word approvance adds a sense of collective approval, reinforcing the communal nature of the celebration. And loud advance her lord. So the crowd praises the bride, showcasing admiration and respect for her, a common theme in wedding celebrations where the bride is central to the festivities. And evermore they Hymen sing. So the repetition of Hymen emphasizes the ongoing nature of their celebration. It suggests that the festival will echo through time, indicating a lasting joyous memory that all the woods them answer and their echo ring. So the final line entails a natural response to the joy. Echoes in the woods symbolize the harmony between nature and human celebrations. It emphasizes the idea that love and joy resonate beyond the immediate surroundings. Lo, where she comes, along with portly pace. So the speaker sees the bride approaching with a dignified and stately demeanor. Lo means look, draws attention to her presence, suggesting a grand entrance, like Phoebe from her chamber of the east. So the comparison to Phoebe, a goddess associated with the moon, emphasizes beauty and grace. It implies the bride rises with the same purity and brilliance as the moon emerging from the east, arising forth to run her mighty race. This suggests an important journey or life path that the bride is embarking on, paralleling the lunar or solar journeys across the sky. Clad all in white, that seems a virgin best. So the color white symbolizes purity and innocence, highlighting the bride's virginity and the sanctity of marriage. So well it her beseems that ye would ween. So this phrase implies that her appearance is so fitting that one might believe she was designed for this moment, enhancing her beauty and significance. Some angels she had been suggest that the bride's beauty and demeanor are otherworldly, elevating her status to that of an angel, which reinforces themes of divine grace. Her long, loose yellow locks like golden wire. So the imagery of her hair, described as resembling golden wire, adds a sense of luminosity and richness to her appearance, enhancing her beauty. Sprinkled with pearl and pearling flowers are twin. The pearls and flowers suggest delicacy and adornment, adding to her ethereal quickly. Pearls symbolize purity and flowers represent love and beauty. Now here we see sprinkled with pearl and pearling flowers are twin. So the pearls and flowers suggest delicacy and adornment, adding to her ethereal quality. Pearls symbolize purity and flowers represents love and beauty. Though like a golden metal, her attire is likened to a golden cloak, suggesting opulence and grace. This metaphor portrays her as a figure of majesty, as if she is bearing the sun and being crowned with a garland green. So the green garland symbolizes fertility and life, used in ceremonial context. This alludes to the bride's role in nurturing and growth as she enters married life. Seem like some maiden queen. The analogy to a maiden queen enhances her beauty and elevates her status. It suggests that she deserves honor and reverence. Her modest eyes, abased to behold. So the bride's modesty is highlighted, suggesting she is shy or overwhelmed by the attention she receives, which contrasts with her regal presentation. So many gazers as on her to do stare. This refers to the crowd watching her, emphasizing her importance and the admiration she evokes in others, creating a sense of spectacle upon the lowly ground a fixed hour. So her gaze is directed to downward, a sign of humility. This suggests she acknowledges the attention but does not seek it. Nay, dare lift up her countenance too bold. She doesn't raise her eyes confidently due to her bashfulness, reinforcing her modesty and self awareness in the face of admiration, but blushed to hear her praises sung so loud. So the bride blushes at the loud praises sung about her, indicating that she is not only modest but also feels a sense of embarrassment or discomfort with such adoration. So fear from being proud. So her humility distinguishes her modest reaction from vanity. It highlights the ideal of a virtuous bride. Nathless though ye still loud her praises sing. So the speaker encourages the onlookers to continue praising her, suggesting that her virtues deserve recognition regardless of her modesty, that all the woods may answer in your echo ring. So the idea that nature should respond to her praises signifies the harmony between humanity and the natural world, and suggests that her beauty is so profound it deserves to resonate far and wide. Tell me, ye merchants' daughters, did ye see? So the speaker addresses daughters of merchants, likely symbolizing an idealized standard of beauty and virtue, suggesting that even among the wealthy none can compare to the bride. So fair a creature in your town before. So the speaker questions if they have ever seen such an exquisite creature previously, highlighting the uniqueness of the bride's beauty. So sweet, so lovely, and so mild as she. The bride possesses not only physical beauty but also sweetness and a gentle nature, elevating her above mere appearances. Adorned with beauty's grace and virtue's store. The amalgamation of beauty and virtue suggests that her physical appearance is complemented by moral qualities, reinforcing the ideal of a virtuous woman. Her goodly eyes like Sapphirus shining bright. So the use of simile compares her eyes to sapphires, evoking notions of preciousness and brilliance. Her forehead ivory white. A description emphasizing purity and elegance, likening her forehead to ivory, which symbolizes beauty and refinement. Her cheeks like apples which the sun hath ruddied. Her rosy cheeks are compared to sun-kissed apples, portraying a youthful and vibrant allure. Her lips like cherries, charming men to bite. So the comparison of her lips to cherries evokes both beauty and temptation, highlighting their allure. Her breast like to a ball of cream uncruded, describes her breast as smooth and rich, an image that suggests softness and purity, emphasizing her femininity. Her paps like lilies budded. So likening her breast to budding lilies suggests that both beauty and innocence, reinforcing the idea of her as a pure and perfect woman. Her snowy neck like to a marble tower. So the imagery of her neck compares it to a marble tower, symbolizing strength, beauty and grace, and all her body like a palace fire. So the speaker equates her entire body to a beautiful palace, suggesting that she is a place of beauty and worth cherishing. Ascending up with many a stately satire. So the idea of ascending with stately stairs implies elevation and grandeur, suggesting a regal and dignified presence. To honor seat and chastises sweet bower. So this portrays the bride as a figure deserving of honor and purity, reinforcing traditional values regarding women and marriage. Why stand ye still, ye virgins, in amaze? So the speaker invites other maidens to stop gazing in awe. It portrays the transformation of onlookers captivated by her beauty upon her so to gaze. So this line reinforces the idea of admiration, emphasizing the impact of her beauty on those around her. Whilst ye forget your former lay to sing. So the female observers are drawn so intensely to the bride that they forget their previous songs, suggesting that her beauty commands attention. To which the woods did answer and your echo ring. So the woods responding and echoing symbolizes harmony with nature, suggesting that the bride's beauty resonates not just among people but in the world around her. But if ye saw that which no eyes can see. So here we see that this line introduces a musical quality. The speaker suggests that true beauty which lies deeper than physical appearance cannot be perceived by the eyes. The inward beauty of her lively sprite. So the poem shifts the focus to the essence or spirit of the bride. Inward beauty emphasizes her character and vivacity rather than external attributes, garnished with heavenly gifts of high degree. So the speaker praises her qualities as divine or celestial gifts, indicating that these traits elevate her status and beauty to an exalted level, much more than would ye wonder at that sight. So the speaker asserts that if one could perceive this inner beauty, they would be even more astounded than by physical beauty, and stand astonished like to those which read. So the use of astonished conveys a sense of awe and shock. This line sets up a comparison to others who have faced astonishment. Medusa's maceful head. So references Medusa, whose gaze could turn people to stone, a potent symbol of beauty intertwined with danger. The comparison underscores the deep impact of true inner beauty. There dwells sweet love and constant chastity. So the speaker describes a realm where ideals of love and chastity reside, establishing a tone of purity and virtue surrounding the bride. Unspotted faith and comely woman head. Now, here, unspotted faith and comely womanhood, these qualities are juxtaposed with malign attributes like infidelity. The use of unspotted suggests purity and moral integrity, regard of honor and mild modesty. The emphasis here is on honor and modesty, accentuating the bride's character traits regarded as noble and desirable. Their virtue reigns as queen in royal throne. So virtue is personified and is depicted as reigning supreme, suggesting that these qualities dominate the environment and influence behavior and give it laws alone. So this emphasizes the commanding aspect of virtue, implying that it dictates conduct in relationships and life, the which the base affections do obey. So the base affections represent lesser desires or negative traits, indicating that they must submit to the higher virtues personified and yield their service unto her will. So this line illustrates the power of virtue, suggesting it commands devotion and respect from lower instincts, nay thought of thing uncomely ever may. So the use of uncomely connotes actions or thoughts that are distasteful or immoral, indicating they cannot approach this realm. They are to approach to tempt her mind to ill. So this reinforces the theme of purity, implying that the bride's mind remains untouched by negativity because of her virtuous nature. Had ye once seen these her celestial treasures. So the speaker concludes by hinting at the countless virtues of the bride as treasures, suggesting they are both beautiful and valuable. And unrevealed pleasures. The unrevealed pleasures signify the joys and rewards of understanding and appreciating these virtues, implying they are not immediately visible. Then would ye wander and her praises sing. So the speaker emphasizes that recognition of these deeper beauties will inspire admiration and celebration, that all the woods should answer in your echo ring. So the closing invokes the idea that such praises would resonate throughout nature, creating a harmonious echo that reflects the beauty of the bride and her virtues. Now, here we see open the temple gates unto my love. So, the speaker invokes the gates of a temple, symbolizing a sacred space. My love here refers to the bride, indicating that her entrance is a holy and significant event. Open them with them wide that she may enter in. So, the request to open the gates wide emphasizes the importance of accommodating her entry, portraying it as a magnificent event worthy of celebration, and all the posts adorn as doth behove. So the speaker calls for the adornment of the posts or pillars of the temple to reflect the honor of the occasion. Doth behove suggests that such decoration is proper and fitting for the event, and all the pillars decked with garlands trim. So similar to this previous line, this line emphasizes the beauty and festivity of the surroundings. Garlands trim represents floral decorations, reinforcing themes of celebration and beauty. for to receive this saint with honor due. So the bride is referred to as saint, suggesting her purity and the reverence with which she should be treated. The usage of honor due implies that she deserves great honor and respect that cometh into you. So, this line reinforces the idea of the bride entering the sacred space, adding a sense of urgency and expectation to her arrival with trembling steps and humble reverence. So, the bride's demeanor as she enters suggests humility and awe, symbolizing her respect for the sacredness of marriage and her commitment. She cometh in before Almighty's view. So, the reference to the Almighty's view indicates that the presence of divine observation during the marriage ceremony. It underscores the spiritual significance of the union of her ye virgins learn obedience. So, this line serves as a lesson to other virgins about humility and obedience, possibly suggesting that they should aspire to the bride's example when so ye come into those holy places. So, the mention of holy places asserts the sanctity of marriage and implies that it is a space where one must approach with respect. To humble your proud faces. This line emphasizes the importance of humility when participating in sacred rituals. The imagery of proud faces suggests that those in attendance must set aside vanity, bring her up to the high altar that she may. So, the directive to bring the bride to the altar signifies the culmination of the marriage ceremony where the couple will make their vows and promises. The sacred ceremonies there partake. So the ceremonies are described as sacred, emphasizing the spiritual and religious importance of the marriage ritual, the which do endless matrimony make. So the ceremonies are said to create endless matrimony, highlighting the belief that marriage is a lifelong bond sanctified by divine intervention, and let the roaring organs loudly play. So, the request for organs to play evokes a sense of grandeur and celebration. Roaring implies a powerful and uplifting sound fitting for such an important event. The praises of the Lord in lively notes. So, this suggests that the music will be a form of worship. The lively notes indicate uplifting and joyous melodies, further enhancing the celebratory atmosphere, the whiles with hollow throats. So, this imagery refers to the choristers singing with depth and resonance, implying a rich musical experience that fills the temple. The choristers, the joyous anthem sing. So, the joyous anthem indicates a hymn or song of praise, highlighting the celebration of love and unity in marriage, that all the woods may answer and their echo ring. So the concluding line envisions a harmonious interaction with nature, suggesting that the joy and love celebrated inside the temple resonates far beyond its walls, echoing in the surrounding woods.